The sun was barely rising over the horizon when Old Man Henry trudged out to his field, his boots crunching against the frost-covered grass. The air was crisp, the kind of cold that bit at your lungs and made you feel alive. Henry had been a farmer all his life, and he knew every inch of his land like the back of his hand. But that morning, something was different. As he approached the far edge of the field, his eyes caught a glint of gold amidst the brown earth. He squinted, thinking it was a trick of the light, but as he drew closer, his breath caught in his throat. There, nestled in the dirt, was an egg, but not just any egg. It was massive, nearly the size of a boulder, and its surface shimmered like liquid gold in the morning sun. Henry dropped to his knees, his calloused hands trembling as he reached out to touch it. The surface was warm, almost alive, and as he pressed his ear to it, he swore he heard a faint, rhythmic thumping. His heart raced. What on earth had he found? Henry was a simple man, hardened by years of toil and loss. His wife, Margaret, had passed away 5 years ago, leaving him alone on the farm they had built together. Their only son, Jack, had moved to the city years before, chasing dreams that didn't include dirt under his nails or calluses on his hands. Henry had accepted his solitude, finding comfort in the rhythm of the seasons and the quiet companionship of his animals. But this was something else entirely. He didn't know what to do with the egg. It was too heavy to move on his own, and he wasn't about to tell anyone about it. The townsfolk already thought he was a bit odd, a relic of a bygone era. If they found out about the egg, they'd either laugh him out of town or swarm his property with curiosity. So he did the only thing he could think of. He built a makeshift shelter around it, using old planks and tarps to shield it from the elements. Every morning he would check on it, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. What was inside, and what would happen when it hatched? Days turned into weeks, and the egg became Henry's secret obsession. He stopped tending to his crops, letting the fields go fallow as he spent hours sitting beside the egg, listening to the steady thump of whatever was growing inside. He talked to it too, his voice low and soothing, as if it were a newborn calf or a fragile chick. He told it about Margaret, about the life they had built together, and about the loneliness that had settled in his chest since she was gone. He even told it about Jack, though the words tasted bitter on his tongue. He hadn't spoken to his son in years, not since Jack had accused him of caring more about the farm than his own family. One night, as Henry sat beside the egg under a blanket of stars, he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. A crack. It was faint at first, barely audible over the chirping of crickets, but it grew louder, more insistent. Henry's hands shook as he leaned closer, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The egg was hatching. His mind raced with questions. What would come out of it? A monster? A miracle? And what would it mean for him? For his quiet, solitary life? The cracking grew louder, more frantic, until finally, with a sound like shattering glass, the egg split open. Henry stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest, as a creature emerged from the golden shell. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its body was covered in shimmering scales that glowed with an otherworldly light, and its wings, massive and feathered, unfurled with a grace that took his breath away. But it was the creature's eyes that held him captive. They were deep, soulful, and filled with a wisdom that seemed to pierce straight through him. The creature let out a soft, melodic cry, and Henry felt something shift inside him. It wasn't fear or awe. It was recognition, as if this creature, this impossible being, had been waiting for him all along. It stepped toward him, its movements slow and deliberate, and pressed its head against his chest. Henry's hands moved instinctively, stroking the creature's warm, glowing scales. Tears streamed down his face as he realized what this meant. He wasn't alone anymore, but the creature's presence came with a price. The townsfolk soon noticed the strange lights coming from Henry's field, and rumors began to spread. Some said he had found treasure. Others whispered of witchcraft. One night, a group of men came to his farm, their faces hard and their intentions clear. They wanted the creature, whatever it was, and they weren't going to take no for an answer. Henry stood his ground, his body trembling but his voice steady. "You'll have to go through me first," he said, his eyes blazing with a fire he hadn't felt in years. The creature stood beside him, its wings spread wide, its eyes glowing with a fierce protectiveness. In that moment, Henry realized that this wasn't just about survival. It was about love, about the bond between two beings who had found each other against all odds. The story of Henry and the golden egg spread far and wide, inspiring countless tales and legends. But at its heart, it was a story about connection, about the ways in which we find meaning and purpose in the most unexpected places. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments there is light. And sometimes, that light comes in the form of a creature that defies explanation. If this story touched your heart, consider reaching out to someone who might be feeling alone or forgotten. A simple act of kindness, a moment of connection, can change a life forever. And who knows, you might just find your own golden egg.